Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Put the kettle on and let's talk some boxing. Now, Tyson Fury has been giving a lot more positive takes on this undisputed fight with Anthony Joshua. He spoke about the fact that he believes it will 100% happen next. This is what he had to say. I think it will 100% happen, and I think we're going to know within the next couple of days when and where. I'm confident this fight's going to get made in the next few days. So there we go, really positive from Tyson Fury, and if you haven't seen that interview, it is a really good one, so I will definitely drop a link to it in the description below. Go have a watch yourselves if you want to. Now, of course, things are starting to get some traction, and there seems to be these updates coming in every now and then. I mean, at some point we do need to know when and where, and of course that is going to be sorted out this week. So it's great to see some positivity from Tyson Fury, and it seems to be coming also from Anthony Joshua, echoing that offers are coming in, offers are on the table, and now they can start looking at those offers to secure a site deal to make sure this fight happens. Now, I don't believe this is going to be in the UK because I don't believe that the UK will put up a site deal. So, given that, they're going to go where the most money is, which is going to be abroad, somewhere like Saudi, maybe Dubai, maybe somewhere even like Russia, a different place that we haven't heard of just yet. We don't know what offers are on the table, but things will look a lot different by the end of the week. Now, Tyson Fury said in a couple of days he believes the fight should be on. He said that TikTok 3 days, he said that last week, but then he said that he's got till Tuesday, then if things don't move forwards, then he will move on. So he does maintain that the fight needs to be on next, and he does maintain that he wants it done as soon as possible. He said that Sunday isn't a working day, so he did not factor that in with that TikTok warning to Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn to get the fight made, otherwise he is going to move on. Now, at this stage, given how far they've come, I don't see Tyson Fury moving on, even if it's not done by Tuesday, just because they've come too far to allow that to happen. Given how far they've come and the hoops they've had to jump through in order to get this far. So I think that maybe even if the fight isn't fully agreed by Tuesday, Tyson Fury is still going to stick around and try and make the fight. I mean, if it gets ridiculous and time goes on, then maybe he will move on, but this fight seems to be right on the edge, really on the verge to getting done. So hopefully that is sorted within the next couple of days. Now, Tyson Fury is also training out in the US as well. I would imagine now he will go and link up with a Sugar Hill at some point, unless he's going to come back to the UK and Sugar Hill is going to travel over. The interesting thing is part of his team is obviously Andy Lee, and he is currently training Joseph Parker for his fight with Derek Chisora. So is Sugar Hill going to come over to the UK? Is Andy Lee going to travel over to the US? Or will Andy Lee no longer be a part of a Tyson Fury's team? Because his priority now is with Joseph Parker, getting him ready for May 1st. So it will be interesting to see the whole training situation with Tyson Fury. Before, I was wondering about Sugar Hill, but now that Tyson Fury has gone over to the US, is he going to continue the remainder of his camp in the US? That is the question. He is over there at the moment, obviously trying to make sure that this deal is done. And there are offers on the table, so he needed to talk to his promoter Bob Arum to ensure that they could get a site deal done for this fight. Now, Dillian Whyte has spoken about Tyson Fury, and he spoke about the fact that he has a padded record, and that was also something kind of Tyson Fury touched on in that interview with Behind the Gloves. He spoke about the fact that if he wins and beats Anthony Joshua, he is number one of this era. If AJ wins, then AJ cannot be considered as number one of this era for one simple reason. He did not beat Deontay Wilder. So until he beats Tyson Fury, Vladimir Klitschko, which he's beat Klitschko, but he hasn't beat Fury. But if he does not beat Deontay Wilder, then Tyson Fury says he cannot be considered as a number one. Fury himself can, because he's beaten Klitschko, he's beaten Wilder, and if he is able to get the job done, then he would have beaten Anthony Joshua as well. Now, whilst I don't necessarily agree with that, because I wouldn't consider Deontay Wilder as number 3 heavyweight in the world, I would give that to Dillian Whyte, especially considering what Dillian Whyte has done in the sport. I know that Wilder is a former world champion with 10 title defences, but who were those title defences against? Has he faced Povetkin, Andy Ruiz, Joseph Parker, even Derek Chisora, Dillian Whyte himself? Those are fights that Deontay Wilder has not taken, so therefore can he really be considered as number 3 heavyweight in the world, especially coming off of a loss to Tyson Fury? No, it's Dillian Whyte. I'd be hard pressed to say he would even slot in at number 4. I mean, I guess he could duke it out with, say, Andy Ruiz, or maybe Usyk, even though he was a cruiserweight coming up. So at the moment, I don't think that Usyk can be considered in those talks because this is the heavyweight division. You cannot count what he's done in the cruiserweight division. If he's going to be judged, then judge him in the cruiserweight division off of his achievements in that weight class, not heavyweight, because he's had 2 fights in the heavyweight division against Chisora, which he laboured and struggled. Chisora could have even nicked a draw or a win in that fight. Then Chaz Witherspoon as well. So if you're going to put Usyk in there, then it's hard to justify that. The other fighters though, you could consider them being number 4, number 5, Andy Ruiz, Joseph Parker even, former world champion. So Joseph Parker didn't really fight big names when he was world champion other than AJ, and he lost that fight. And I guess you could say the same about Deontay Wilder. Yes, he faced Luis Ortiz twice, but then again, who has Luis Ortiz faced? So he hadn't proved himself in there with Wilder, especially because he lost 2 of those fights. His 2 best fights he has lost. So it's hard to count him as a, say, top 5 heavyweight that Wilder has faced. Then you look at Tyson Fury, 1 draw, 1 loss. So if you're going to count Deontay Wilder up there in the top 5, then you have to consider Joseph Parker because the resumes are kind of similar. Yes, Wilder has Fury on his resume, but he didn't beat him. He has Luis Ortiz, but then again, Joseph Parker has Andy Ruiz Jr. So therefore, they are kind of even, and you would definitely put Dillian Whyte above Joseph Parker because he has beaten him and has faced a tougher opposition than Joe Parker. Going back to the original point made by Tyson Fury, does Anthony Joshua need to beat him and Wilder to be considered as number 1 in this heavyweight era? In my opinion, no he doesn't, because Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder, eliminating him from the talk of being number 1 of this heavyweight era, so therefore Anthony Joshua does not need to beat him because he was eliminated by Tyson Fury. The same could be said for, say, Andy Ruiz Jr., the same could be said for Povetkin, Joe Parker. Anthony Joshua has beaten them and eliminated them from those conversations. I mean, I know Joe Parker you wouldn't consider now as being number 1 of this heavyweight era. Maybe even back then when he was world champion, he didn't show certain aspects that would make you believe he could beat Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua, but still, he could have been considered in those conversations until the fights happen. And that is the reason why these 2 guys are there after all. They have beaten those guys. Tyson Fury has beaten Vladimir Klitschko, he has beaten Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua has beaten Povetkin, Vladimir Klitschko, Joseph Parker, Dillian Whyte, to ensure that he is in this position to be considered as number 1 if he beats Tyson Fury. Because I know that boxing is a completely different sport to, say, football, but if you think about, say, the FA Cup or the Champions League final, if one team beats another then makes it to the final and they get beaten in the final, does that mean that they are still the best because they beat someone in the semis but did not win in the final? No, that's not how it works. The champion is the champion, the one who wins is the number 1, and the same thing applies to Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. The winner is the number 1 in the heavyweight division, and that's just the way it goes, I think anyway. But you can be open to your own perception if you think it differently. It's up to everyone to have their own opinion, of course. And Dillian Whyte saying that Tyson Fury has a padded record and saying that Deontay Wilder does. Deontay Wilder definitely does. Tyson Fury has some good names on his resume, but it's not as thick as, say, Anthony Joshua's. He doesn't have a Povetkin or someone like that, an Andy Ruiz. I mean, he does have Vladimir Klitschko and Deontay Wilder. Derek Chisora is a good name as well, but as I said, it's not a thick resume like Anthony Joshua or Dillian Whyte, although he has had 2 mega wins. And if he fights Anthony Joshua and wins, then he does have a very good resume. Even if he doesn't beat Anthony Joshua, that's still a good resume, and Anthony Joshua also has a very, very good resume. So I think that, considering he's going into an Anthony Joshua fight and will have 2 of them, then Tyson Fury does have a good resume after those fights, whether he wins or loses. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, also leave a like and grab that subscribe button. Thanks guys.